Okay. Hi. My name is
My name is Michelle Post, and this is my phenomenological research presentation. And my topic is the relationship between multiplication fact automaticity, which is nothing more than knowing your times tables, and success in developmental mathematics. I chose this topic quite a while ago, but it probably seems familiar to you because I keep using it for all of my stuff. But it's because I really am interested in it, and last semester I did a quantitative analysis on this particular topic, and a couple months ago when Dr. Skidmore was talking about doing the journal-ready dissertation where we add a qualitative component to a quantitative research, it just really excited me. So that's what this proposal is about. I hope to blend the quantitative and qualitative in my research for my dissertation. So for the introduction, I have a couple of facts here, and most of you probably are aware of this, but really my passion is about people knowing their times tables, and my experience has been that in post-secondary education, oftentimes we will start with some very basic math concepts, and right at the point where those concepts turn into the place where you should learn your times tables, we skip over them, and then we move on past that to other topics. And I believe one of the reasons we do this is because our students are adults and we feel that they should take the responsibility on themselves to learn these times tables, or perhaps they're going to use their calculator or something like that. But I just feel that it's a problem, because then they can't do some of those higher level complex thinking problems and skills that they need, because they've missed out on this piece that they need to memorize. So that's where my passion is, and that's really what this study is all about. Specifically, the purpose of this phenomenological study is to explore the lived experiences of students who withdrew from a particular intermediate algebra course, to compare the experiences of the students who withdrew from those who scored well on their times tables test and still withdrew, to those who did not score well on their times tables test, but also withdrew from the course. I'm hoping that this will provide insight to me as an educator and to our particular department as to whether or not we should mandate the teaching and students learning the times tables as part of the curriculum. So I have 4 research questions. 2 of them are primary and the other 2 are just sub-questions. The first question says, what are the lived experiences of students who withdrew from an intermediate algebra course at a small open enrollment university in southern Utah? Question number 2, what are the key differences between the experiences of students who demonstrated multiplication fact mastery and those who did not in regards to their decision to withdraw? Question 3, or my first sub-question, what challenges did these students face that led them to the decision to withdraw from the course? And question 4, what do these students report might have helped them to remain enrolled in the course? For my methods, I'll start with the context. We're looking at Dixie State University, which is where I work in southern Utah. Our student body is relatively homogeneous. We are mostly white, mostly Mormon students go to our school. We used to be a community college, so we actually have quite a few commuting students. Anyways, and I think our student body is somewhere around 11,000. So for this particular study, I'm talking about students who were enrolled in the intermediate algebra course in the fall 2014 semester. And just for a little background, a student places into intermediate algebra either by taking the AccuPlacer or their ACT score, or taking the previous math class and scoring a C or higher. So we have 2 developmental math classes at Dixie, and the intermediate algebra course is the higher of the 2 developmental math courses. My participant selection, of course I use purposive sampling because it's a qualitative study, and within that though I chose criterion, stratified, and random sampling techniques. The criterion is because this is a phenomenological study, and so obviously all the participants have to have experienced this particular phenomenon of withdrawing from the fall 2014 intermediate algebra course. It's stratified because from all those people who experienced this phenomenon, I'm separating them into two groups. The group that actually did well on the times table test as opposed to the group that did not do well. And then finally, within those two groups, I will use random sampling. So in other words, of the people who withdrew but did well on their times table test, I will randomly select 3. And then of the people who withdrew and did not do well on their times table test, I will randomly select 3 as well. My role is, first of all, I consider myself to be a constructivist interpretivist because I do believe in multiple truths, and I believe that they can all be equally correct. I also subscribe to an axiological parameter in that I really don't think that I can completely divorce my own beliefs from the experiences that the participants will reveal. And one of the key points there is the fact that I truly believe that multiplication fact automaticity is essential for a person's success in this particular class and the class that comes after that. So with that in mind, I plan on bracketing as much as I can so that I can be forthright with what my personal feelings are and keep them as separated as I can from the data that I discover throughout this research. The instruments that I'll be using, of course, I would be the researcher interviewer, and I've also developed an interview protocol. Of course, I'll conduct the interviews and then keep a reflexive journal throughout so that not only can I feel more connected to the information and the experiences that the participants share, but I can continue to bracket and separate my own thoughts from what I think their experiences are. This isn't my full interview protocol, but I decided to put the questions up so that you can see these are the questions that I would use in my interviews. And basically what I'm really looking for is to hear each individual's math story. Every time I've talked to a student, they have a personal story about math, and sometimes it's good and sometimes it's not so good for them, but regardless, it's their own lived experience and it's extremely interesting. So I would like to hear about that. I would also like to know about their decision to withdraw from the intermediate algebra course. And then specifically I want to know about their experience memorizing multiplication facts. And then finally I'm interested in knowing what might have helped them to remain in the intermediate algebra class as opposed to withdrawing. So for the data collection, I already said that I would like to interview 6 participants. The interviews, I plan on having them be between 30 and 45 minutes long. These are students from Dixie State University who attended the intermediate algebra course in fall 2014 and then withdrew. During the interviews, I will have an audio recording device. I plan to not take notes because I find that this information is often quite sensitive and can be traumatic for many people. So I would like to be as connected to the participant as I can in the interview process. I would like for them to feel safe. I would like for them to feel valued, and I would like for them to feel that I'm listening to what they're saying. So for those reasons, I will choose not to take notes because I think that will distract me and disconnect me from their experiences. So anyways, as a result, I will then transcribe the audio recordings and of course keep the reflexive journal throughout. The data analysis approach I will use is the phenomenological reduction approach, and I plan on conducting a first cycle coding, a second cycle coding. I want to do a direct comparison technique between those two stratified groups, the ones that withdrew who had the good multiplication score, and the ones that withdrew who did not. And then finally, of course, because I'm a number person, I'll do a content analysis, and I'm really excited about that because I get to count things up and then put them in neat little graphs and charts, and hopefully appeal to a wider audience so that different people can interpret the data different ways. Obviously, in the end, I will still textualize the information, but the content analysis adds, the numerical side of that as well. It kind of quantifies it. So for validation, credibility, and trustworthiness, I chose 4 things. Member checking, which I plan on doing probably after my coding is complete. I would like to go back and meet with the participants and just bounce those ideas off of them, basically what I gleaned from their interview, and see if they feel like that's really what they meant. Obviously, I've talked about the reflexive journal, and the peer reviewing. What I would like to do is just have a colleague who just kind of goes through all the different information that I've gone through, a more cursory level, but just to see if their interpretation matches with mine. And then finally, for the counter case investigation, I will be looking for negative analyses, and if I find one or more, then obviously I will report those. The delimitations and limitations, for the delimitations, we're really referring to the sample, and obviously my sample is limited and it's relatively homogeneous. For the limitations, the real validity of this study is going to be based on the participants' ability to be honest, authentic, and be willing to disclose. And I understand that a lot of that will have to do with the environment that I can establish in the interview, but some of it will just have to do with them as well. So that's definitely a limitation. My own interpretation of the data could easily be a limitation, especially if I'm just way off. And then finally, we can always end up with some sort of technical mishap. The audio device might stop working in the middle of the interview, or maybe I'll lose my transcript or something like that. But anyway, so that's that, and here are my references, and thank you for listening. I hope you have a really great couple of weeks off, and I'll see you guys next semester.